we got asked this question quite a few times. What's the importance of eating meat on Yom Tov? How important is it to eat meat on Yom Tov? So the Gemara says, "En simcha ela bebasar veyain." Simcha is only with basar veyain, but most Rishonim hold that simcha is referring to the korban Hagigah which was bought, that meat we're talking about, not any meat which you have today. But it's really all got to do with the oneg, what a person enjoys best. If a person enjoys meat, then it's a mitzvah to have meat on Yom Tov as oneg Yom Tov. But if people don't enjoy eating meat, and I know many people who don't like meat, they prefer eating fish, then obviously don't ruin your oneg Yom Tov, because the Gemara says, "En simcha ela bebasar v'yain." If you don't like it, then you might make sure that you eat what you like, right? But the general practice of the Sfaradim was always that the meals of Yom Tov consisted from meat, chicken. We never made meals out of milk. So they used to eat milk, but not in a meal. They used to eat it prior to the meal. Well, let's first start with the famous Ramah, which brings in Ilchot Shavu'ot. The Ramah brings, I had on the table. Yeah. So the Ramah brings, I think that's the one. Yeah. Read it out to you. The Holy Ramah brings in the Siman Taf Tzadik Daled. Yeah? When he talks about Shavuot. ונוהגים בכל מקום לאכול מאכלי חלב ביום ראשון של שבועות. Interesting that he points out it's on the first day of Shavuot which they do it. But because the Ramah is going to now explain why was it only on the first day, if you're commemorating Matan Torah, we should do it on both days. But there's something special about the first day. It was the akrava of the Shtei HaLechem. It was a very unique korban which was sacrificed once a year, which involved breads, 2 loaves of bread. And that's what's bought from wheat and on Shavuot. So, if you remember in Pesach, not long ago, we had Zecher LeKorban Pesach and Zecher LeKorban Hagigah. That means we even ate an egg in remembrance of the Korban Hagigah, because it could have either roasted or cooked. So you take a cooked egg and you have a food on the table with Zecher LeKorban Pesach. Some communities actually eat it. We don't eat it, as we don't eat roasted on Pesach night. But you have something there to remind you what took place at that Yom Tov in the Beit HaMikdash. Why in Sukkot we don't? Because, I don't know, it wasn't a unique, it was extra korbanot. So, on Shavuot, how do we do Zecher L'Shtei HaLechem? How do we do Zecher L'Shtei HaLechem? So the Ramah says, "V'noagim b'chol makom le'chol ma'achalei chalav." They had the custom to eat milky products on the first day of Shavuot. V'nira li atam, it looks to me the reason, Shahu kemo hashne tabshilim, just like we have 2 different types of foods on Pesach night, one remembering Zecher LePesach, one Zecher LeChagigah. Ken ochli ma'achalei chalav, for that reason we eat milky food. V'achar kach ma'achal basar, v'tzichim le'avei imahem shnei halechem al hashulchan, because the halacha, which we'll soon discuss, requires you that you can't have the same bread which you had at that milky table whilst you were eating milk, because people usually touch the bread whilst they're eating, and therefore that bread has got a status of milky bread, which you cannot use then on a meat. You'd have to bring a new bread onto the table, and you end up bringing 2 breads, and that's Zecher L'Shtei HaLechem. I don't think anybody even occurs to him such a thing, but the Ramah says that looks to him that that's a reason. Shahu bimkom, the shulchan, our table, is domel hamizbeach, and we bring the Shtei HaLechem, the 2 breads on the mizbeach. V'yesh bezeh zichron l'shnei halechem shayu makrivim b'yom habikurim. So that takes us in to the discussion of the minhag of eating milky products on Shavuot. So the Ramah has given us an opening reason And if the Rama says a reason venirali and doesn't bring the other reasons which are more commonly known by other people, it must be that he wasn't so comfortable with the other reasons. Right? Because to eat milky on a Yom Tov, you need a good excuse. So therefore comes the Rama and says, I've got a very valid one. This is zecher to the korbanot. We always yearn. We want to have the korbanot, Bezrat Hashem. Right? So he brings this reason. But there's other reasons more down in the poskim, quite far-fetched a little bit, yeah, with the kelim, that they couldn't do shchita, they were told them mitzvah to do shchita, so they couldn't only eat milky product, or because dvash vechalav tachat leshonech. It says the Torah is compared to dvash and to halav, so then we should really be having chalek, or we should be having sweet stuff as well, because that comes before the halav. Dvash vechalav, so maybe that's a kahi with the chalek. So you have sweet, and you have together with it milky. It's milky. How was the kahi milky? Because they used to do it with butter, I presume. Yeah, they used to make it with butter. But that's how the minhag became. Then the bakers inventing something called cheesecakes. And that's how it became an industry. And that's the custom and the practice. So we have to know exactly what it requires. If the Rama suggested we should have in the same meal, it seems to be milk and meat, then we need to know the halachot of milk and meat. Is it all right to have in one meal, in one hamotzi meal, both milk and meat? Is that what the Rama means? Or the Rama is going to tell us, no, eat a milky meal, make birkat hamazon, and then you bring new breads and make on a meaty meal. But it's not mashma. It doesn't seem to be from the Rama that that's what you do. So let's try and understand these halachot before we draw any conclusions, yeah? So, we all know the restrictions between meat and milk. Meat, chicken, and milk. Everybody is familiar with halachot. We all know that you have to wait. We all know that you have to do birkat hamazon. It's not sufficient just to wait in time. In one meal, if you had meat, you can't have milk until you will, because, let me explain to you. In the Talmud, when the Gemara brings about waiting between milk and meat and milk, then the Gemara says that Mar Ukuba brings that you should wait miseuda leseuda. Miseuda leseuda. And he brings that he was Chala bar Chamra. He was vinegar son of wine, because his father, when he ate in one day meat, he would wait 24 hours to have milk. So he is diluted Judaism, like. He left his father's minhag a little bit. He was kanireh, gzera she'en hatzibur yachol la'amod alea. And he moved, he made it from meal to meal. So there comes a big argument between the Rishonim about what is from meal to meal. Is it straight away, just make sure it's a new meal, and some hocus pocus of Birkat Hamazon will make, no matter the time, so long as you're having a different meal, or does this meal mean to what normally people space out between meal and meal, right? Which is approximately a minimum of 6 hours. People don't tend to have meals closer than 6 hours. Don't compare the meals we have today, because in the time of the Gemara, some of the meals we have today, they were called snacks. They're probably snacks. People have a little bit of rice and chicken. That's not, a meal means you sit down for bread. So they used to have a meal in the morning with bread, and in the evening they used to have a bread. In the middle of the day they would eat whatever. Today we call it meals. You have lunch, and you have mashed potatoes, and you have salad, and they call it a meal already. Yeah, you have cornflakes, you call it a meal. No, they do a proper meal. So they would really space it out. So the Rambam says that that's approximately 6 hours. Something like 6 hours. That's that way round, right? You'll always ask a question is, why is it by milk and meat is such far-fetched gezerot? That the biblical prohibition is only not to have cooked meat and milk. And we not only not cooked, if you just have meat and milk without it being cooked together, it's the Rabbanan. It's only rabbinical prohibited. Now, not only that, you're prohibited even to have it near each other, space it out. That sounds like a gezerah le-gezerah. Don't have it close to each other, because you might have it together. And if you have it together, you might have it cooked together. That's quite a far distance to the initial issur. So what's the answer to this? Milk and meat are both permissible. They didn't have to, Chachamim didn't have to keep you away from having pork or having taref meat. That's obvious to you, it's asur. It's always asur, it never changes. Meat and milk on its own is always mutar. You can have meat, you can have milk. So therefore, there is more room for confusion and people having it together and ending up cooking together, and that's what the Chachamim made, because they're both heter, they're both allowed to eat on their own. So that's why they made a lot of divisions between meat and milk. Now, we have to know a few halachot. Now let's switch the thing the other way around. The Gemara never, you have to remember this point, that Tosfot and the Rambam argue, the Rambam is a Rif, and Rashi, they hold that you have to wait a serious amount of time between meat and milk. But the Tosfot brings Mesouda le means literally, just make Birkat Hamazon and eat now a meal consisting milk in it, because that's enough of a separation, which is logical. However, the reason why I'm bringing that way around first is because I want to know where the concept of making Birkat Hamazon comes from. That people shouldn't confuse it, that if you do it the other way around, you also have to do Birkat Hamazon. If you ate meat first, there's a requirement that there shouldn't be a meal. Now, when the Chachamim came and said that you have to wait 6 hours, it's not only 6 hours, it should be in a separate meal. It shouldn't be in the same meal either. We're not going to be more lenient than the first opinion. You need Birkat Hamazon, and then you wait. The other way around, when you have milk first, the Ramah seems to suggest that you have it in one meal. And that's really the halacha. The halacha is as follows. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Peitet. Achal gvina, if one ate cheese, mutar le'echol acharav basar miyad, he's entitled to eat meat right after the cheese. Miyad. What does miyad mean? Straight away, immediately. However, ubilvad, sheye'ayen beyadav, shelo yeh shum davar. In the olden days, they used to eat with their hands. People might still do that today. But definitely you might handle things with your hands. If you're alone at home, for sure. So you have to make sure your hands are clean. Ve'imu balayla, and if you can't look at it, now remember there was no sinks nearby. So you'd rely with the kinuach. So if it's at night you couldn't see, so you had to make sure, then you'd go and wash them. Tzarich lekaneach piv, also you have to wash your mouth. So, because no isur from the Torah really, even if you got meat and milk in your, but you have to wash your mouth. That lo alenu, you shouldn't have at the same time cheese and milk, cheese and meat in your mouth. So therefore you have to wipe your mouth, rinse your mouth. Now what's kinuach? So the Shulchan Aruch suggests you should go and chew bread. Il'as pat ve'kaneach piv yafeh. So if you eat something in between, which doesn't stick to your teeth, because the Gemara says kimcha ve'tamre, flour and tamarim stick to your teeth, so it doesn't clean your teeth. So you have to eat something which you can chew and then swallow, so that your mouth will get clean. Today we'd call it, go and brush your teeth. So if you go and rinse your mouth properly with a brush, then you can have straight away, you can have a meaty meal. Right after the cheese. Now, yes, we do have a minhag that the Ramah brings that some weight between cheese and milk, as long as the weight between meat and milk. And the reason for this is that we all know that the reason why we wait between meat and milk is a machloket between the Rambam and the Rosh. The Rambam holds is because basar ben hashinaim, because you might, when you eat meat, it's chewy. Sometimes you got little pieces of meat stuck between your teeth. And I presume in the olden days it was worse than nowadays. But even nowadays, when there are no dentists, can you imagine what you had in your teeth? You can have a whole storage place inside the teeth. And you might have a piece of meat. So says the Rambam, wait 6 hours, and after 6 hours in the mouth, the meat becomes a piece of rubber. So according to Rambam, really you didn't have to take it out of your mouth. But we are machmir like both opinions, we take it out of the mouth, even if you find it after 6 hours. Rosh says the different reason. Moshech Ta'am. Rashi says Moshech Ta'am. The flavor of the meat is quite strong, and therefore it can bring up taste and flavor up to 6 hours. So not with digestion necessarily, yeah? Because we know digestions can be 72 minutes. This is 6 hours. But did you ever over there? Remember in yeshiva, I don't know, there was something about the meat, but I think it was more the soya part of the meat. It was minced meat mixed with soya. And that can bring up flavor. You couldn't learn with the afternoon, chavruta. It gave it a strong taste up to 6 hours. So there's two reasons. So some want to say, cheese, yes, you can't get it between your teeth. It won't stay long there. It's softer, but it can sometimes have a very strong flavor. So therefore, for the other reason, Rashi's reason of Tam, that's still applicable. So therefore, they want to say that just like you have to wait between meat and milk, and milk, so too you should wait if you have hard cheese. Even from the Shulchan Aruch, it's not mashma like that. There was never takana for cheese. Either because it's not shchiach, or because it doesn't consist from both the reasons of having between your teeth, and also Tam. From the simple Shulchan Aruch is mashma, you don't have to wait between cheese and milk, and meat. Our minhag is that Ben Ish Chai suggests that based on the months of manufacturing process of the cheese, you should wait 1 hour per month. You tell me today, you got less knowledge of what they used to have in the olden days about that. You have to find out how quick they make the cheese. You've got ways of making cheese very fast today. So you've got very strong cheeses like Parmesan, which is really strong Italian cheese. Yeah, that's why you have to grind it. You don't eat it just like that, the real ones. You grind it, you put a little bit on your... So those are very strong flavor they have. Those you might have to wait up to 6 hours because it takes 6 hours to mature. But the current regular cheeses you find in the supermarkets, I don't believe they take more than 2 months to manufacture. So therefore, to wait 2 hours would be sufficient. But it's only a minhag, yeah? Meikar adin from the Shulchan Aruch is mashma that you don't have to wait between cheese. So, if you are having hard cheese in a meal on Shavuot, then bear in mind you can't do the Ramaz solution so easily of bringing 2 breads because you're going to have to wait. You had hard cheese. So what is he referring to? If you had soft cheeses, like you have cheesecakes nowadays, sambusak, you have with soft cheeses or milk. So then, even according to the minhag, to the custom of waiting between, you don't have to wait. All you have to do is rinse your mouth and eat something in between, wash your hands and make sure it's clean. Now, one more thing you have to do is clear the table of all your milky stuff and clean the table. If you designate special tablecloth, or if not, you have to wipe the table and you have to make sure there's nothing left from the milky meal once you have the meaty. Plus, bring a new bread to the table because most big chances are that you touch the bread which were on the table once you were eating the milky meal. And like this, you have the zecher v'shtei alechem. It's become a common practice nowadays that we do a kiddush in the morning after the prayers, and we eat milky, and then lunch we have much later on, and we have lunch with a proper meaty lunch. That's become, so if it's less confusion. So okay, so you don't have that advantage of the 2 breads. Once someone asked, every amotzi you make on Yom Tov and on Shabbat, you always bring 2 breads. So it says that's not enough according to the Rama. Because that you're doing it because of the man. Yeah? So it doesn't count for the 2 breads of the Shavuot. So therefore, the Rama says you should do that idea of in one meal without Birkat Hamazon. Why? Because Birkat Hamazon you only need if you add meat first and then you're having milk. But if you add milk first, then you don't have to make Birkat Hamazon after that. Now I must point out that in the Zohar, there is a mashma'ud, there is an understanding in the words of the Zohar that irrelevant what you eat first, you do not have at one time cheese or milk and meat at the same time. I will tell you what the Lashon of the Zohar says. The Lashon of the Zohar is, Bechad HaSha'ata, the Vilna Gaon quotes this, and the Ramah in Yoreh De'ah brings it, interesting. Moshe Isserlish brings it. ויש מחמירים שלא לאכול בשר אחר גבינה באותה סעודה, וכן יש בזוהר. So what does it say in the Zohar? Okay. The Vilna Gaon brings the full version of the Zohar, the words of the Zohar. And in the Zohar, the Lashon, the text of the Zohar is דברי הזוהר בפרשת משפטים, לכל מאן דאכיל היי מחלה, this food of meat and milk, כחדה, together, או בשעתה חדה, or in 1 hour, or בסעודה חדה, or in 1 סעודה. So from the Zohar, there's an understanding. It doesn't say which way around you had it. Whoever eats meat and milk at once, or in 1 hour, I don't know what hours the Zohar was referring to, Shavu'ot Zmaniyot, not Shavu'ot Zmaniyot, but one time, or in 1 Seudah. So there's an impression given from the Zohar HaKadosh that you should not eat milk and then meat in the same meal, because it's Chada Seudata. A lot of Mefarshim explain that the Zohar is not referring that when you have milk first and then you have meat. The Zohar is going after, like the Talmud tells us, that when you have meat, you have to wait for the milk, don't have it at the same time. Presumably that's a little bit of an indication to Tosfot idea that it's Mesouda Lesouda. But if you add it that way around, the Zohar is not referring to that. Okay? However, some are particular not to have in the same meal. I said that's our practice usually on Shavuot, not to make the Ramaz idea of washing hands and doing in the same meal, milk and meat. But Meikaradin halakha is you could do that. You can have your first course milk, and then clean the table, bring dishes in which are meaty, change the bread, wash your mouth, have a lechaim, and then continue your meat meal. Bring a new bread on the table and continue. You could do Meikaradin. Okay, but you'll hear by many people that they're choshesh to that understanding in the Zohar that in one meal you shouldn't have milk and meat. Okay, I'm just presenting to you the different opinions as come as this. Yeah. Now, that's as far as the custom in the minhag of having milk. What?
You should only eat meat.
Oh, this is a Moroccan idea. You should have meat. You're right. I agree with you. It's Yom Tov. If that brings you simcha, then you should have. But if people don't like meat, it is not on it. You don't have to put yourself under discomfort. Have milk. There's usually an excitement for children. There's some excitement when children they want milky because they're traumatized. We traumatize our children because we the whole time don't want to become meaty because of our silly cup of coffee we might want to have. And therefore our children learn very quickly. And whenever we talk about meat to them, it's like a trauma day. They need to have milk. And you tell them it's milk, wow, they're so excited. Why? What happened? You might have a milky bar you want to eat. Okay, there's another understanding about dvash v'chalav tachat leshonech. It's interesting, the Torah is compared to dvash and it's compared to chalav. The Gemara says, are you allowed to drink milk? Really, had the Torah not told us eretz zavat chalav udvash, we wouldn't be able to have milk for 2 reasons. First of all, the milk comes from the blood. Secondly, it's ever min achai. We're not allowed to take from a live animal anything from, like taking a limb. Not only a limb you can't take, in ever. Even if you take basar min achai is asur. Even the milk should have been asur. Says the Gemara, but what should we do? The Gemara in Bechorot Vav says that the Torah says, Eretz zavat chalav udvash. If the Torah was mishtabeah, praised Eretz Yisrael for the milk, it must be they're allowed to drink it. So what's the problem with milk? Why wouldn't we be allowed to that? Because it's mitmatzeh migufo. It actually comes from the body of the animal. The animal manufactures the milk. It's not like other things which excretions or things which come out from an animal, which is just passes through his pipe work and comes out. The milk gets produced from the body of the animal. Now, I'm just getting to the honey bit. He just jumped up and said honey is the same. It's actually not the same. So wait, there are 2 kinds of honey. We are jumping to the honey of the bees. Yeah? We are referring, the Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash is not referring to the honey of the bee. It's probably referring to date honey. But it's known that the Torah is compared to honey, even the bee's honey. There's something sweeter, but there's a difference between the honey and the milk. You know that? That the honey doesn't come from the body of the bee. It actually takes the pollen, it takes the thing from the flower, it processes it, and it brings out the honey which we eat. Flauta bria. It's like a machine. Today they can't manufacture such a machine which can create honey. You know that? You get false sugar, yeah, molasses. You get sugar, cooked sugar. You do different things, but this processing of taking from the flower and making it into honey, it's only through the bees. I don't think we can have a substitute to such a machine yet. It's niflaot bria, something unbelievable. So it's different. That doesn't come from the body of the honey. That actually goes in, he pockets it, he processes it, and brings it out. And that's why it's allowed. It's not like the milk that you need a pasuk to tell you it's allowed. You should know Torah has both qualities. In Torah there's mitmatzeh migufo, and there's also what we process from others. Make no mistake. We learn Torah which other people have taught us, which other people have explained to us. But you should know when you bring it out, not only you're going to be bringing out Torah which you've heard from others, there's mitmatzeh migufo. If you learn Torah properly, you'll end up bringing a chidushin yourself, which you never heard from anybody else. We each one have a portion in the Torah. And like the milk is mitmatzeh, comes from the body of the animal, yes, we take in a lot of Torah, but we manufacture our own milk, our own Torah as well. And that's the gadlut of Torah. Hashem says, I will wait for 600,000 people, the Jewish people to be 600,000. Why? Because the Torah has shishim ribo. It says shishim ribo otiyot, even though it only has approximately about 300,000 letters in the Torah. But there must be some letters which are considered like two letters. And Mashal, I can tell you, a mem is made from a vav and a chav. You can have a chet made from zayin. I don't know, there's some calculation which ends up saying that there's 600,000 letters in the Torah. The Torah was given to 600,000 minds because there's 600,000 ways of understanding the Torah. Each Jewish person has a chelik in the Torah that no one else has that chelik in the Torah. And that's Shishim Ribo. That's what Hashem says. I will not give it to Abraham. I won't give it to Yitzchak. I won't give it to Yaakov, not to the 12 tribes. I will wait for the Jewish people to count 600,000, and only then I will give the Torah, because the Torah needs 600,000 minds. So no use complaining how many yeshivot there are and how many people are studying Torah and they should go and work and they should go in this. Because until we will have our institutions holding of 600,000 people learning Torah, it's not enough. You're not going to have enough Torah in the world. You need shishim ribot deot in the Torah. That's very important, to make time to learn Torah, to make time to learn, because you don't know what hidushim you can bring about and no one else can think the way you're thinking. I'm not talking about people who make up nonsense and interpret the Torah wrongly. I'm talking going with the principles of the Torah. When you learn a piece of Talmud, when you learn a piece of Mishnah, and you learn it in depth, and you explain it, and you try to understand it deeper, you could draw such great conclusions that no one else can come to it. Because you have a chelik in the Torah in a different than someone else. And that's why it's so important. No one can say, Shalom, other people learn. My contribution you don't need to the Torah. You are taking away from Am Yisrael the chidushim which are supposed to be coming to the world. And that's why Torah is compared to milk.